Welcome to the backyard farm. Hey guys, what's happening? It's Tate with Backyard Farming Supply out here at the irrigation station. We've been having a little problem out here. Unfortunately, we have a leak. But fortunately, it kind of showed that the system that we built totally works. So down in the ground right here, there's actually a 75-gallon black and yellow Tupperware tote with some corrugated over it with some holes drilled in it, pea gravel in the bottom, underneath the container. This is actually connected to a tube. This tube runs over here and runs underneath the stairs and then spits out into the trampoline. And you can see that it is working to exactly what we wanted it to. So it's working to its specs, which is awesome. But the bad thing is, apparently, probably when we were putting in this last tub, we might have hit another line, or maybe even just the coupler came undone. We'll find out here in a little bit. But I wanted to give all you guys out there who are dealing with irrigation or sprinkler leaks, kind of the step-by-step how you go after something like this. So first step, I came in here with my trusty hoe, hoed all the rocks. And I was able to start and find where the leak was. I was able to follow it because it was leaching out a path of soil and rocks from right where the leak is. The good news about leaks is they'll usually point themselves out. If you're walking along and all of a sudden you have a sinkhole spot. So the next step is we're gonna actually come in here and we're gonna clear out more of this soil. And then after we get this dug out, the hole is probably going to be this big. So now that I'm at this phase, I'm going to kind of just use this tool and you're going to be able to make it look nice and neat. Always those little details that really add a big difference in the end of a project. The next pro tip is to turn the water on. If you have the water turned on, it will make the leak a lot more visible to be able to find. Check that thing out. The crazy thing about this leak is it actually only happens when the float valves on all my tanks are closed. So because all of these tanks are filled, that water is alleviating some pressure and going by and filling the tank. Well, once those float valves are full, all of a sudden the water supplies all of this stuff, then has a whole bunch of pressure on it. And that whole bunch of pressure, after a good amount of time, actually did end up blowing off. And one thing that I wanted to show you guys here that I've gone over on some of my other PVC videos is there was only one coupler. A lot of times I put two couplers. I'm really big into putting two couplers, especially in these spots way underground, just to try and prevent this from happening. We're gonna dig the rest of this out now that we've located it, get both ends nice and exposed, and we're gonna actually end up having to put two couplers in with a little piece of tubing in between because it looks like this just might be too tight in general. One clamp, one clamp. Now are you guys gonna single clamp or gonna double clamp these things in the future? So the next step, just to make your life easy, is to turn the water back on. Use the water pressure to clean off some of these tubes and stuff. Man, look how much of that the leak could be if it wasn't just a little pinhole. Actually, it wasn't even actually a leak. It was just blowing off the fitting. We went in, we dug out the hole, we found the leak. It was actually just that this had blown off of there. And if you can look at this actually, look, it straight shifted how this whole thing looked. Kind of crazy, I've never seen that. I don't know, I don't think that was that way out of the box. It just, over time, water pressure ended up blowing out the plastic. So what that tells me is that it was just under too much stress. It was just too tight. First part is we're gonna cut out, or in this case, our bad part, because to undo this clip and get that thing out of there, it's just gonna be a huge pain in the butt. So that's the first part. The next part is we found our 100 PSI tube, and we're gonna cut out our little pack. Next part is we're gonna insert one of our couplers on one side. You gotta make sure you get this thing all the way down. The best way to do that is to wiggle it around a little. You gotta wiggle it, you gotta wiggle it. The next part is you gotta make sure you put on your crimp clamps. Because if you don't put on your crimp clamps before your next piece, you're not gonna be crimping very well. And our next step is we measure how long our patch needs to be. So you run it all the way to the barb. That's a little too long. I'm gonna actually end up making this about that long, because I don't want that hardcore angle like it had before. I'm gonna really put this over here. I'm going to measure, and I'm gonna cut that to about there. I like to do all this with hand PVC cutters versus the automated ones because you can get a lot less pinch on your line in these really tight areas. The next step is to put on your other coupler now that you've got your piece tight. The next step is crimp your crimps. I absolutely love this Ryobi crimper. This thing is awesome. And I personally, especially in underground scenarios, like to just give each one, like right there I saw it just tighten just a little bit more. A little extra crimp on all 4 of them, making sure they're all tight. Then we come back and we look at the tube, and we've got our tube tight against the barb and tight against the barb, double clamps. Now our next step is to take the clamps and place them on the other end of the hose. So now next step is, I like to put 2 there and then 2 here. After that, we come in here and we go ahead and we add our little patch. Next is we crimp our crimps on that same side. Once again, double crimp everywhere because I don't want it coming apart again underground, that's for sure. Make sure that your tube is good to go and you don't have any last minute adjustments that you need to make on this tube, but do allow for that little extra room because before it was just a tiny bit too short, so I'd rather have it be a tiny bit too long, or just right in this case. The next step is to crimp all of the outside crimps. So that was the last one. We want to double check it. Got this tight. Got 2 crimps. Both of those are tight. 2 crimps, both tight. 2 crimps, both tight. 2 crimps, both tight. Got our patch piece here. Now the next step is I'm going to go turn on the water. And here we have it. The water is on and there is no leak anywhere in sight. So I always like to let it sit like that for about 5 or 10 minutes. Make sure nothing weird happens, that there's no glitch in space-time reality. And then I'll take my dirt, I'll toss it right back on top of that, and I'll shovel all my gravel back over. The next step is all we do, we throw this dirt back in here, right on top, smooth it back out, down. So now, we just bring the rock back over. And now my leak is not leaking anymore. And at the end of the day, it's all kind of the same steps. Pretty simple. Find the leak, figure out what parts you gotta use to get the leak to not leak, then pressure test it, then fix all of the surroundings. And that easy. Thank you very much.
Please like and subscribe. Thanks for the Dooley family.